Hello and welcome back. We're back again with another deck tech video. This is still me going through my active decks for 2025. It is June, it is Pride Month, and we're nearing the end of the slew. So what I'm doing here today is we're revisiting Karazikar. About a year ago, before I blipped off the map again, I shared my group hug Karazikar deck. And in that deck, I gave a lot of verbiage and techniques and fun things to say to help a group hug deck survive. This is my current list. We're just doing an updated list from that previous deck. Some cards have changed, and notably, there's now a secret commander in this deck. So, I'm not going to get too in-depth in a lot of the verbiage from the previous video, since a lot of that is the same. This is still one of my favorite decks to run. It is constantly, even though the win rate is significantly higher than it should be, it is still just a moderately low-powered deck. But let's go through the deck real quick. Again, this is a group hug deck. It is piloted by Karazikar, and if you did not watch the previous video, how this deck works is it creates chaos by the impression of helping everybody out. You typically help the worst person out to make everyone have more equal grounds to curb favors from them in the future. And then when the time is right, you are no longer group hug, and instead you do something to win the game. Now, Karazikar is a fun one. It's a beholder. It's a 5-mana 5/5 that whenever you attack a player, so if you attack more than one player, you tap and goad a creature from that defending player. You cannot tap and goad someone else's creature if you are not attacking them. Also, the reason we're playing Karazikar here, whenever an opponent attacks one of the other opponents, they lose a life, draw a card, and you do the same. So if they attack two of your opponents, you and that attacking player draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. It's like a free sign in blood, which is very good. This is one of the newer commanders, new for me. Being that it's from the Baldur's Gate set, I think. I know it's a beholder. To me, this will always be a Cacodemon. I'm a Doom fan. A Pain Elemental, Cacodemon, somewhere in between. It looks like both. It really should fly. It just bugs me it doesn't. But we love this eyeball. This has always been just a favorite amongst everyone who knows me and my decks. And the chaos, the shenanigans that come from every game, the political fun, is a memorable deck. It is a deck that creates wins by creating a dialogue in a relaxed game environment. So if you are not a sweaty tryhard, this would be a fantastic deck, or something like this, a group hug deck that is not group slug, but a deck that is designed to actually benefit and give helpful aid to your opponents in a somewhat controlled way, something that you can control and still get a benefit from. So some of the cards in here are specifically just for that. Now, there's Karazikar as our commander. We have, as I said, a secret commander. We have a second Karazikar. No, I'm just kidding. We have 2 Karazikars. The secret layer here is very difficult to see, but this way we at least have some depth perception. But really, the secret commander of this deck is Fallen Angel. Let's put it up here next to the Enchantments. This is a play mat by Enchantments, who did the original artwork for Fallen Angel. I'll throw some B-roll footage up here in a few seconds. Fallen Angel is my absolute #1 favorite Magic card ever. The original Legends Fallen Angel, the original Anson art, is actually the reason I got into this game back when I was a child. I started playing Magic in Mirage. Let me date myself real quick there. But the artwork is what got me into the game, specifically the artwork of Fallen Angel. And the OG Fallen Angel, I've made so many decks trying to make her work and keep her functional. This is the secret commander of the deck. Well, the deck always does its normal thing to try to win, but the goal for 2025 thus far has to see how many times we can kill a player using Fallen Angel. So there's some unique cards in the deck just for her. And so far, again, it's June 2025. I started doing this. This was my New Year's resolution. We have 11 kills so far with this card. One of my friends is already tuning their deck with the intention of getting my Fallen Angel out of my deck, with the intent of killing me with my own Fallen Angel via bribery and reanimation effects. Can't kill me with my own angel, that's so rude. Let's stick the angel with the creatures and we'll go through the current cards. Some cards have changed in this deck, creature-wise and whatnot. We'll go through the changes and I'll explain why we've changed them. But the primary creature that we want to protect and see into play is Fallen Angel. There are ways to save her, to reanimate her. We might tutor for her, but really, it's sometimes we have actually sacrificed a game-winning state to get a kill from her, which isn't winning the game, we're just getting a kill with her, but it's kind of the point. Going on to the rest of the creatures, a lot of these are, again, from the previous deck list, but there's some new ones. We have the mana ramp creatures, the 3 that are very good to put the other equipment on that also land ramp, sort of the animist effects. These 3 will get us basics out of our deck into play. They will help us get into the late game. The Canoptic Wraith is like a new, somewhat worse version of Burnished Heart because you cannot control the sacrifice, but it is unblockable. So if you're running equipment like Sword the Animist, this is a fantastic inclusion. We have, of course, a Sadbot. Now, Valky was in, I think he was in the original deck list, but Valky is just here to slightly corrupt the opponents because he makes everybody and your opponents reveal their hand. I almost never activate this ability, and I never play his reverse side. His reverse side being a 7 mana planeswalker. He is here as a 2 mana chump blocker that makes the opponents reveal their hand. So you can point out who is the current threat, and you basically just tell the table, I want you to share with the class. That is the verbiage I use. It helps. Keen Duelist is, I think, was still in the original deck list too. This is just another pseudo group hug effect. We don't have any ways of abusing this, although we have one top deck tutor in the deck. But this is more or less just a card advantage to help someone else in the game as well. We have a little bit of goad. We've taken a lot of the goad spells out of the deck, but these 2 are still my favorites. The Demon is fantastic because he makes it so goaded creatures can't block anybody's. And the Robo-Doggo gives us an excuse to make John Wick quotes. Like, you kill my dog, I have to go John Wick on you. But Menace on double goading someone's entire team, removing blockers, is actually fantastic on both of these guys. And again, Menace bodies using sort of the animist effects helps you get into the late game because no one can really chump block these efficiently. Not exactly group hug. I still love Zancha. Zancha is still one of my absolute favorite commanders. I woefully regret selling my Zancha deck. The one I had pre-COVID, I showed a video. I think that was one of my final videos before I went AWOL before COVID. It was my Zancha World Gorger Dragon deck. Parts of that deck have survived. It was the final deck that I saved, but it wasn't led by Zancha at the time. But I love Zancha here. She is fantastic. This is an awkward card to have in a group hug deck, but you are essentially giving away a 5/5. There is a lot of shenanigans afoot that can be had with this card. You can do combos with her with infinite mana. We're not trying to do that. Your opponents might. This is a difficult card, although, because if this is in play and there's only one opponent, you cannot efficiently attack them unless you have Menace or Flying. But Zancha's here just to give somebody a 5/5 to initiate damage earlier. Disciple Bolus is one of our stability creatures. It helps us gain a bunch of life and draw some cards. We might just sacrifice an eyeball to gain 5 and draw 5. The Ember Wild Captain. This introduces the Monarchy into the game. We also use this to help people not want to attack us, but this is mainly to introduce the Monarchy so we can create the dialogue of Monarchy, and we want to freely trade Monarchy back and forth because it helps us get extra card advantage throughout. Again, the dialogue being the key here. We're not a Monarchy deck, and his extra damage effect is kind of relevant. Cardor is another, he doesn't say the word goad, but he is a goad effect. Essentially a much better commander for a goad style deck. We're not trying to abuse him, we're just trying to make sure that we don't die in combat. Frequently, we want to hold on to him until as late as possible, because this is a game-ending effect. I did take the goad spells out of the deck, and he is, I believe, the final effect like this. He does have a tendency to make some bad feels amongst opponents because there's a lot of ways to abuse this, and most people are familiar with the decks that like reanimate and sacrifice him repeatedly to get his ETB trigger every single turn. Fun decks. The Beast is a fun new card that I've been tinkering with. It is a ETB. This is the caster ETB. When you cast this spell, you get to active treason somebody's creature. And then he just essentially stays tapped with a bunch of stun counters. This is a 4 mana active treason that is some permanent on play that might cantrip. It's kind of a cute threat. And that's basically the best part. I have a fling in the deck that is reminiscent, and he has sometimes been flung at an opponent for 6. But he is here basically to active treason something at the end of an opponent's turn, or not at the end of their turn, but just to yoink it and borrow it. We have the girl with the bubble tea, Massacre Girl. A funny board wipe, not always essentially a board wipe, but can be. Most of the time, this is here just to try to wipe some tokens out, and it may end up wiping the entire board except for herself, leaving you a menace body, which is again fantastic for equipment that you want to connect with. This is just a really cute artwork, and the cutesiness of the artwork, saying it's the girl with the bubba tea, is usually enough to get a somewhat of a pass sometimes. We have Sauron. This is a little bit out of order. Sauron was supposed to be next to the Beast. This is actually a win condition, and I explained this in the last video. Group hug deck like this, you can create all the hug effects, but you have to have a set amount of cards that are your actual win conditions. Cards that can actually win you the game when you are ready. And this is one of them. His ETB trigger is an active treason, yes. But the most important part is this text box down here. This whole beginning part where he ETBs and borrows a creature, that is distracting. That can confuse an opponent. And that's great because that usually means they forget about this down here. This deck is very good at putting a lot of lands into play. Getting a lot of mana. It doesn't make infinite mana. He is an infinite mana commander. But most people don't see him. And most people forget about this last part because the last 4 words are what really matters on this card. Each opponent loses life. Well, 2 life. I guess 5 words. But yeah, that is a repeatable pump effect for every 3 mana, which becomes a global bleed. So if you're doing shenanigans where people are randomly losing life throughout the game by Karazikar burn or some other nonsense, this is going to save you and win you the game because most people will forget about the bottom part, and then by the time you untap, you can bleed everybody out. Not group hug. We have the pair of Gearhawks. They have sustained in the deck for generic ETB value. We have a few reanimation things, so having some ETB value is always good. And finally, we still have Rocky in the deck. The Rocky that tends to randomly destroy my own creatures. This is here, again, mainly because it is somewhat chaotic. It is a chaotic, uncontrollable board wipe. And this can make bad feels if you are slow or don't know how to resolve it quickly. So just to repeat how to resolve this quickly so you don't make bad feels in the game, this is your card. Tell the opponents that you will do it for them and get a dice. So start pointing at every creature that's not a demon, devil, or imp and roll the dice. And if it's an even or odd, choose. I usually just say if it's even, it survives. If it's odd, it dies. That way you can sequence through all the creatures in order and know what does and doesn't survive. This deck tends to somehow trick creatures into play uncontrollably, so sometimes he's come into play and blown up my own board. But he is a fantastic beat stick, flying trampler in the air. We'll stick these and my precious fallen angel over here for a moment while we go on to the rest of the spells. We do have the group huggy spells, the ones that you would expect to sustain in the deck. We have a top deck tutor. Fantastic turn 1 if everyone else seems to have an explosive start. You pick the person who is not having an explosive start. You and them go get your soul rings or whatever you need. This used to be fun to combo with the Chaos Wand and the Wand of Wonder, because you can then take whatever spell they put on top or communicate with your opponents to get that spell, or troll them because they may not know that you're going to cast it from the wand. Those wands are no longer in the deck. They are very mana intensive. There's so many mana needs in this deck that those wands could not survive, and they are being used in a different deck. But let's go on. We have Indomitable Creativity, a very fun chaosy spell. This is one of the cards that sometimes accidentally pops Rakdos into play when I don't want him to show up. This is something that you can use on yourself. You can build a strategy around this card, blowing up like clue tokens or blood tokens to get a lot of permanence into play. I did this with the Ronnie. It was a Doctor Who card that made a bunch of clue tokens, and I made it so I can get every single artifact out of my deck with this card. I regret not recording a video with that because I think I showed that deck in a few spell table games, but I don't think I actually recorded a deck tech with it. But in this deck, we want to use this politically to curb favors. So in a later game when we have a bunch of mana, we can go around the table and see who is ahead and who is not ahead. So the person who's ahead, we hit the relevant targets. The person who is struggling, we hit their trash targets. So destroy the scary creature and destroy the arcane signet. And on our side, we have a few artifacts and things we can also hit. Fun card is fun. We have the techniques. These are cards that give us a little bit of advantage, and if we give a copy of it to an opponent, then we get a copy of it ourselves. Again, this sometimes pops a Rakdos into play on our side accidentally, and then we blow up our own cards. But that is the fun of this deck. Chaos, you don't always want to have 100% control over everything in here. But this is also a mill and reanimate. So we could reanimate 2 bodies, and then we can just do a random free card off the top of the deck. I think there's one more demonstrate card that got spoiled. We're recording this in the beginning of June. And I think there's another demonstrate card that got spoiled I can put in here, but I don't remember what it does. We'll take a peek. But we have another way of creating a dialogue with the opponents, like Monarchy, is introducing the dungeons. The initiative in this case right here. We have a reanimation spell. It can get anybody's anything out of anything. I think we have the artifact in here that also creates initiative. That is the primary reason this is in the deck. The reanimation part is helpful. The fact that we can escape it is the reason it made the cut. So it is a repeatable effect. It can be rebought from the graveyard. And it does have a very beautiful little... I just want to give this guy a hug. Now, if you are interested in adding things that add dungeons and the initiative to the game, one of my biggest recommendations is to get an oversized card. A lot of people don't like this mechanic because it makes things a little bit more confusing if they are unfamiliar with it. But if you get an oversized card, it's easier to read. And what makes that even better is if you get game pieces to basically create more of a dialogue, more camaraderie and fun in the game. So for example, you take the initiative, you can pull out a handful of random game pieces. You can say, today I feel like being the car from Monopoly. And you can tell the opponents, whenever you take this from me, because I will freely trade the initiative back and forth, let me know what piece you want. You can be the hat from Harry Potter. You can be the submarine from Battleship. I think that's, yeah, Battleship. So that is another silly way of creating a dialogue in the game, and it's still progressing the game. You're giving an opportunity to help people move through, learn about the initiative, and progress themselves. And you are creating, hopefully, a friend amongst the group of enemies so that you can trade the initiative back and forth. And if you're not going to trade it back and forth, your opponents are going to trade it from them. And you know what's really good when your opponents attack each other? Having a commander that draws you cards when that happens. See, now you're getting it now. Let's continue moving on here. Next, we have Allure of the Unknown. I love Seb McKinnon artwork. You've probably heard me say that in every video this month. Any deck I have, I try to stick at least one of his cards in there because the artwork is so good. But this card is perfect for what this deck wants to do. This is, in short, a 5-mana draw 5, make a friend. It can backfire, and it definitely has backfired. What it really does is, it's 5 mana, reveal the top 6 cards of your deck. Your opponent of your choice is to play the best card out of those at that point. Whatever timing restriction is ignored, the other 5 go to your hand. So yes, you get to pay 5 to draw 5. Sometimes they get the best card in your deck. Sometimes you give them 13 zombies by accident. and you die. It happens. Sometimes you reveal 7 or 6 lands and nothing happens. This is pure chaos, but you can always target the player who is in the worst position to try to give them a nudge and help up. Because if someone else is slightly ahead of everybody, the more people who are lacking behind can then contribute to help slow that one person down. Moving on, we have Seize the Spotlight. This is a fantastic card that really should see more play. It sometimes ends up just being a free Ancestral Recall with, like, that's it. It's 3 mana. Your opponents each get a choice that goes in turn order. They can either let you borrow one of their creatures until end of turn, or you draw a card to make a treasure. Now, if they don't have any creatures, they can say that you can still borrow a creature, and you don't get anything from that opponent. This is one of the cards that's strictly bad if you don't have 3 opponents. Now, you can do political plays. You want to make sure your opponents don't think that you have a sacrifice outlet. There is one in the deck. But if you want, you can try to ask to borrow someone's commander to do more commander damage onto somebody else. But all too frequently, no one trusts the black deck to not be able to sacrifice things. So this becomes 3 mana, draw 3 cards, make 3 treasure tokens, kind of just like a free Ancestral. Moving on, we have Stinging Study. This is still in the deck. We have a 5 mana commander, so paying 5 to instantly draw 5 and lose 5 is fantastic. Instant speed draw spells. Make sure you always play those at the end of your opponent's turn, that way you have as much mana and options available to you. This is another card that still accidentally sometimes kills people. This is supposed to be a draw card, and sometimes it can be as low as 3 mana. But all too frequently, this accidentally kills an opponent that you really don't want to kill. Now, actually, this has killed me more times than I've killed opponents, because this part down here, about discarding your hand and drawing 8, happens before the damage is done to your opponents. And sometimes games go long and you end up drawing most of your deck. And I do believe I have about 3 kills on myself from casting this card and being too low on cards in deck. Yeah, because the damage happens after you draw. The damage will happen if you are not in the game, so essentially you draw death before you damage anybody. You can't even stalemate the game with us. We have a Shenanigans card. We have a Fog and Darkness with this beautiful William Shakespeare quote. I still really would like to get the foil Time Spiral one I used to have back. I unfortunately sold that in the 2020 purging. I used to have 40 EDH decks back in that era. But when the pandemic hit, I needed the money to survive and work on this nonsense. So all that went away. We have a Fling that can be attached to a creature and a theft effect. This has just been in most of my mono red decks actually since 2010. This is a fantastic utility card. Sometimes you can borrow somebody's creature at instant speed. You can remove it from combat. You can take 2 creatures attacking you. You can take one of them and block the other. You can borrow an opponent's creature to block somebody attacking you because of the instant speed effect. The Fling option is also fantastic, and it tends to kill people out of nowhere. If they have a gigantic creature, they're going crazy alpha striking with like a 40-40, this will get them good. Now, we have a Flare in here. I think this is the... No, I have both of them again. I've been putting this also in my mono red deck. I love both of these. It is always good, if you have access to red or blue, to play at least one Fork or Twin Cast or Narset's Reversal or one of those effects. Because somebody is eventually going to cast a gigantic haymaking spell. It could be an Exsanguinate, Amanatu's Augury, whatever kind of spell that you just want to leech off of. And really, if they're just throwing out a Kadama's Reach, a Cultivate early in the game, that's still worth it. Especially this one right here. This deck is Pseudo Group Hug. And this fits perfectly with that theme, because if someone plays like a ramp spell that you can copy, and you play this so everybody can make more copies of that ramp spell, they're all gonna take it. Everybody will take a free Kadama's Reach. But then you get a lot of Kadama's Reaches. This card is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. The free option here doesn't happen very often. I don't have a lot of red creatures I'm willing to throw away, but it is an option in a pinch. It probably should just be a fork. Saw in Half is fantastic. We have a bunch of creatures with ETB values. Even if they're legendary and they legend roll themselves out of the game by making a copy, this is also just good on generic value pieces. Solemn Simulacrum cut in half, good. This is excellent. You can use this in combat on an opponent's creature attacking you. It may be very bad. I have played political games with this against a Craterhoof Behemoth. An opponent was trying to kill multiple people at once, and I was able to wiggle my way out of the death scenario by giving him an extra ETB trigger of 2 more Craterhoof Behemoths. I still lost that game, but that was really funny. Shenanigans card. Army of the Damned. I don't remember if this was in my previous video or not. I have a gigantic stack of beautiful tokens, but this is primarily here for our beautiful fallen angel. Sometimes she gets really hungry, and having a few little zombies to munch on really helps. This is one of the enabling cards that helps us get to a very large angel to smack someone very hard in the face. The recursion, the flashback option on there is really the best part. Let's keep going down here. We have a few wipes in a Damnation. Price of Progress. Actually, this is the only board wipe. Price of Progress was in the previous deck list, and it will stay because this is a winning card. Our deck has 5 fetch lands and 32 basic lands. Like, I'm not playing any techie, non-basic lands in this deck at all. I don't need it, really. And Vanity has me playing my very old basic lands in here. But this can just kill people, and if you are unfamiliar with how efficiently this can kill people, there are a lot of 3, 4, and 5 color decks floating around in the current world of EDH. The power creep has everyone being very greedy with their lands. So something like Kenrith or Ur-Dragon, this solves that entire player, and it's 2 mana, instant speed. And this frequently just reads, kill target 5 color player. If you're on the fence of like even buying this card, just proxy it up and try it in a few games, and whenever you're ready to thank me, you can thank me. The last spell in the deck is a Mizzix Mastery. This is a giant stack of game warping spells. These are not game changing spells, but game warping spells, yes. Any 1 or 2 of those spells can just throw the tide of the game completely out of whack. So being able to buy back one of them for free or buy back all of them usually ends the game. I love Past in Flames effects. I chose Mizzix Mastery for this deck because it is more efficient to be able to cast 1 spell when needed, or cast all of them as a win condition. Let's go through some other permanents. We have a number of enchantments in here. Now, Phyrexian Reclamation is one of my absolute favorite cards. I had a pair of these in my binder. When I sold everything, I kept a binder full of basic foil lands and a few handful of cards. And this is just one of my old cards from my childhood. I have a duplicate of this in my Bantu deck. But this is here because we have a secret commander. And this secret commander sometimes dies, and we really don't want to lose her to graveyard hate. So we have to be able to pick her up whenever we can. But also she gets hungry, so sometimes we have to feed her some things, and we can loop mana into sacking things over for her. But this is here as a generic reanimation effect. There's a lot of options this could be. This is just one of my pet favorite cards. Going on down, we have Gift of Doom. This is a very entertaining card when you think about putting it on an opponent's creature. This is a morph card, so it will come out for 3 mana as an upside down 2/2. And then if you sacrifice another creature, which is the cost to morph it, it will unattach or become an aura attached to anybody's creature. You can target an opponent's commander, for example. So if you want to try to get favor out of someone and someone else is board wiping, you can try to save and protect a commander that might be dying to removal. It doesn't have to be yours. The Death Touch is a fantastic trick if someone is trying to kill you or swinging into you, but all too frequently this gift will end up right on my angel. Going on down, we have Oubliette. It's awkward when you're playing Group Hug to play removal. As you saw, we have 1 Damnation. We don't have target removal. But you can create some bit of dialogue if you have funny removal. And this is a funny removal. There's newer versions of this that have the corrected oral text Oracle text. But this is a 3-mana enchantment. It comes into play and phases out a creature, which means it takes all the equipment and counters enchantments with it. And it doesn't phase in until this enchantment leaves play. Also, it phases in tapped. A lot of people miss that. But if someone is not being very receptive to your gifts, or someone is attacking you even though you're trying to make friends with them, you can say that you're going to put their creature on timeout. That is the verbiage I use. It is humorous and funny. And yeah, it is just a funny way. This is a good answer to commanders that are problematic. Phasing something out means they cannot put it into the command zone. And a lot of decks have a very hard time dealing with enchantments. So a humorous version of spot removal. And finally, we have still the Fire Emancipation. Yeah, this has sustained in the deck since the last deck list. This is just one of those game-ending cards. We sandbag this until we're ready to do something to win the game. For example, we sandbag this until we find a Price of Progress to just murder everybody. Any kind of burn effect or creature damage effect with this in play is insane. Now do be careful with this card. This is not something you want to expose early. Sometimes you accidentally give this away with your Allure of the Unknown, but as a game-ending effect, this is a hard one to top. Let's move on to the artifacts next. There's a bunch of different categories of artifacts. Let's get these out of the way. Now, as I said, the wand, the Chaos Wand and the Wand of Wonder were replaced. They went to another deck. They were replaced with Liar's Pendulum and Pyxis of Pandemonium. Two of these are my really old favorite artifacts. The Pyxis was one of my favorite cards in Zozu the Punisher. This is one of the very rare effects in the game where I, as an opponent to a player, can force lands into play under that player's control. So in Zozu the Punisher, this is one of the best cards. In this deck, this makes a secret face-down pile of cards that may or may not never actually show up. Usually, in today's era of EDH, this is going to get blown up before we have the 7 mana to ever activate it. But we can use the dialogue of us generating cards and gifts to give to somebody, everybody, equally throughout the game, until someone eventually wastes removal on it. The Liar's Pendulum is fantastic because you can play other manipulative, funny verbiage games. We can play the McDarby game. Oh, that made me sad. So yeah, the McDarby game was to create a lie counter. See how many successful lies you can tell your opponents. This one, let me read it out loud in case it's faded there. You pay 2, tap it, you name... An opponent guesses if you have a card in your hand, you name the card. If they guess wrong or correctly, you may or may not reveal the hand, and then you may or may not draw if they guess it's there. Sometimes you have the card and they guess it wrong, and it's fun to mess with this card. I made a reference there that's showing my age a bit. David McDarby, he was, if you're familiar with the Commander versus Star City Games people, McDarby and Danny West were the original hosts of Commander. A lot of people vouch that, yeah, they say Sheldon created the format, but really what brought the format to the public eye and attention was SCG's content with those two and their camaraderie and their fun banter between each other. McDarby in one video made a lie counter for this card. I really miss them. There's sometimes I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. That'll just make me sad thinking about the history of them. The OG content creators from back then, like commanding your commander from YouTube, had a very rhythmic voice, and he pulled a lot of people in. McDarby and Danny were fantastic. Even when they introduced Westwise and Parnell, fantastic people. They're still going strong, I know, but yeah, I miss the old people too. I wish everyone would just get together and just catch up. That'd be fantastic. Now going on, this still has sustained from the original deck list. This is a group hug card. You can tutor for whatever you want. Sure, we're probably going to get an Angel or Soul Ring or something silly like that. Just make sure that whoever you give this to doesn't give it back to you, because that means the 2 other opponents are less inclined to sustain friendship. Usually you want this to float around to everybody but the person who is in the lead of the game. We have Hithlian Rope. This is one of many ways this deck has of getting basic lands into play. that is how the deck accelerates. It is getting tricking lands rampant growth style into play, but this is a group hug card that will go around the table this way, and it will either allow them to draw a card or put a land into play from their deck. Someone will eventually try to sacrifice it, and they never read the first line of text saying it cannot be sacrificed. Hopefully it makes it around the turntable and you can use it more than once. We have Pendant of Prosperity, same thing with Hythlian Rope. Give this to the non-green player, but there is some problems with this particular card. A lot of people that may not be very savvy with their experience in card advantage may not realize that if they're trying to sequence through their turn and they end up with one untapped land, that they could have activated this and put another land into play and still had mana to finish their turn. So sometimes you want to be careful who you give this to. You want to make sure you give it to someone who will use it, but not the person who's going to run away with the game. Moving on down, we have another rather old card. Power Matrix is here because I can target anybody's creature. So yes, I can use this to give the eyeball flying. It should have had flying the whole time, but it doesn't. I don't understand Beholders enough to understand why it doesn't fly. It looks like it should fly. But we can target an opponent's creature. We can make it +1/+1 flying, first strike, trample into a turn just by tapping this artifact. This is a very weird card. This has very little impact on the game other than manipulating combat and making people not always want to attack incorrectly. Some people miss this, that you are willing to target someone else's creature. And that is where the fun banter starts to really shine. Moving on down, we have Palantir of Ornthek, another way of creating dialogue with opponents, but this one does tend to hurt. Usually you just end up drawing a few cards. What really happens is usually the first 2 or 3 turns with this, someone will have you mill, and they'll take some damage. Then after the 3rd or 4th turn, you will just always draw an extra card every turn. But if you are curving favors with friends already, they may just automatically let you draw. Milling in this deck is a good thing since we have a few reanimation things. But either way, this is just one of the best draw mechanics that you can get in this style of deck. Ring of Gix is another rather old card that I love playing with. This gets so many people. It's the Icy Manipulator. This is strictly worse than an Icy Manipulator. Again, I can show my age here by talking about when this was first printed. Icy Manipulator, if you're unfamiliar, is a 4-mana version of this card that does not have Echo. And that used to basically be a very dominant card in Type 2, which is standard. When that rotated out, this card was eventually spoiled in the Urza's Destiny block, I think. And there was so much talk about the return of Icy Manipulator and how crazy power... It was horrible. This was unplayable. The Echo cost makes it unplayable. But this is a card I've had since I was a child. I opened this. And this is a very beautiful foil. It's horrible. This is horrible, but this really messes with people in ways that they don't think. Because this taps artifacts, creatures, or lands. Lands being the key thing there. So if someone's sitting on a Maze of Ith, you can tap the Maze of Ith. On someone's upkeep before their draw step, you can tap a Cabal Coffers. Tapping down a random artifact or creature to remove a blocker or some kind of other effect is fantastic. And sometimes you're just being silly with this. You use this on nothing. You tap down just a piece of equipment just because you can. We are going on to the mana effects of the deck. We have obviously a Soul Ring. Now we got this new Soul Ring, and I haven't really decided if I like the artwork or not. It's got this whole like altar cryptid thing going on here, and I really kind of like the mood. But the framing and the template and all this empty space on this card, it's kind of unattractive. So it's an interesting Soul Ring, but I might replace this with something better. There's this really cute one that has like a cat or a dog. It's a reversible one, but it's so expensive. Going on down, Wayfarer's Bauble will always be in any non-green deck I run. It would take a tremendous number of power corrupt replacement cards for Wayfarer's Bauble to be replaced in a deck like this. We have my Pair of Diamonds. If you've been a fan of my channel for the past 10 years, you know most of my decks will run the diamonds when possible. I love these two 7th edition. Again, I started playing a Mirage. That's when the diamond cycle was introduced. I learned the power of a turn 2 ramp into a turn 4 or turn 3 Discordant Spirit, the black-red spirit. Discordant Spirit. I'm trying to remember, it's the one that grew whenever you were dealt damage. Now, we're going way back to my childhood if I keep talking about that shit. The TLDR, these mana rocks come into play tapped. They are wildly outdated in today's era of EDH. This could be a Thought Vessel and an Arcane Signet, or a Mind Stone and a Felwar Stone, or literally you can get a dual color. You can get something like a what's the compass? Star Compass. You can get one of those. But my nostalgia has me running these cards because I love them so much. Definitely replace them. Talking about bad mana rocks, we also still have the of Ramos cycle, the Skull and Heart of Ramos. Now, these have aged horribly as well. This could be a Warm Power Stone, a Coalition Relic, a Dark Steel Ingot, just anything better at a Commander's Sphere. Now, I do actually like these in this deck for a reason. A lot of people think that you're tapped out, but if one of these is in play, and you tapped it for mana, you can still sacrifice this for red, or sacrifice this for black. So it's not actually like you're tapped out of mana. So if you look like you're tapped out with your mana rocks and everything, you technically still have access to darkness mana right here. That is actually relevant, and that really does trip people up. So for a deck of Shenanigans, that's actually a good thing. But it is very hard to recommend these cards. What is a good recommendable card is Mirran Safehouse. We have 5 fetch lands in this deck, so this is a 3 mana Rampant Growth. Someone might be playing other techie lands that might have gotten blown up. There could be a Cabal Coffers or a Nykthos in somebody's graveyard. Myriad Landscape's the dream because you can 2 for 1. But there are other things that this can do. As I said, we have the Cervex Tome. This is the second way of gaining the initiative, adding that dialogue and fun mini-game into the game. This taps for 2 otherwise. Oh, it taps for 1, but if you have the initiative, you taps for 2. And if you complete a dungeon, you can do some other things here that by the time you've completed a dungeon, realistically, you have better things to do with the mana in this deck. Coveted Jewel is the best, fun, most entertaining card for this type of deck. This is exactly what this deck wants. This deck loves, yes, drawing 3 cards and having a mana rock that taps for 3, but we really want this card to be given away to the next opponent. We will actively ask or see if anybody would be willing to trade this back and forth. Because if an opponent takes this to your left, that means the next opponent to their left wants this rock. And if we have our commander in play, then we're going to keep drawing cards even without this rock, because they are going to attack an opponent. That's that sneaky next level kind of card advantage trick that's going on with this card and our commander. Now we have the equipment that you would expect to see in this deck. Well, there's one sneaky equipment hiding in the back here. These 4 equipment are all designed to go get lands from our deck and put them into play. This comes with a germ. This comes with the potential of flickering something like a Solemn Simulacrum just to get another ETB value trigger. This one exiles cards off the top of our deck and we can play a second land. But the point of these 4 equipment are to come out early after we have a creature to attack with, and that way we can try to get more advantage further. There is one more equipment hidden back here. We'll just go ahead and show this guy. This is a very mana-hungry deck. We need a lot of mana to function, and some of our spells are wildly overcosted. So being able to create a bunch of treasure tokens is good. The problem is we don't really want to showcase this. Like, even if we had Karazikar on curve, on turn 5, and then 6 mana, we had the 3/3 to cast and equip. You might not want to do that, even just to get 6 treasures, because that instantly shuts off any element that anyone will ever trust that we're a group hug deck. So, Reaver Cleaver is fantastic. I used to have Ember Cleave in here for exactly the same reason. It was a win condition, because you could just smash somebody out of nowhere. Sandbag this card. You do need the treasures. So what you're wanting to do is wait to the one turn where you know you're about to close out the game, and then you use this kind of as a ritual. You can use it earlier, but so far I have actually given this away twice with the Allure of the Unknown. It's just funny. Let's move on to the lands to wrap up the current list. As I said, we have 5 fetchable target lands. We have 1 that gets 2. We have these other ones here. It just seems weird to have, like, not even a Terramorphic Expanse, but a Bloodstained Mire. It's odd, I know. But these are all here just to keep our basics looking pristine, because we have a matching set of 16 of the exact same Swamp and Mountain from 7th edition. 7th edition foils, if you haven't noticed, might be my favorite set. That was one of the most entertaining sets to draft. I know it seems those cards are so underpowered now, but the drafting mono white in that set with the little archer sub-theme was fantastic. It made attacking and blocking so crazy. But I love these mountains. These are John Avon mountains and Rob Alexander swamps. A perfect pairing. They look gorgeous together. Absolutely. This is another one of the stacks of basic lands that came out of my binder. When I sold out in 2020, I had a binder full of basic lands. And these were... Yeah, I've been holding on to these for a while. I didn't have enough to actually complete this deck. I had to buy a few more. But that is my current Karazikar the Eye-Tyrant deck, with the Secret Commander of Fallen Angel. Now, as I alluded to in the previous video of this, the win conditions in this deck are highly tunable. You can change them to be whatever cards you want. You can fill out the essential group huggy cards, and the manipulation cards are all variable based on who you play. But you can have about 5 or 6 cards in the deck designed to actually win the game. And that can just change over time. In the previous video, I think I had a Blitzwing in here. I had Ormondal, the sword, because I like the idea of flipping it, and I threw that at someone. But the 2025 resolution of getting kills with Fallen Angel has so far been hilarious. We are up to 11 kills. I want to try to get to 20 kills by 2026. I have a friend who has a vendetta whose goal is now to kill me with my own Fallen Angel. I will go ahead and I have a lot of artwork and prints around my room where I sit in here, but I will go ahead and show some B-roll footage of some of my favorite prints, because I have a print of the original Anson Maddox Fallen Angel. We have a bunch of cards of the OG Fallen Angels. I wanted to get the artist proofs of those cards. Some of them are available on their websites, but they're very expensive. But Fallen Angel appeared in a few comics, and one of those the artwork for the cover of that comic was also produced as a print. And of course, my favorite version of Fallen Angel, while I love Anson Maddox artwork, my favorite version of Fallen Angel will always be Arnie's 7th edition Fallen Angel. It's just the most beautiful, especially in foil. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little update on my eyeball, and I hope you all have a wonderful Pride Month. Bye.